episode 1 of my retro review Halloween special where I review the first 8 Friday the 13th films. I do not own any of the spin-offs. I have the remake, but since I have them all right here, the first 8, I thought I'd just do that. So I'm sorry I won't be reviewing Jason Goes to Hell or Jason X, but I heard those were stupid, so it's probably a good thing for me anyway. So obviously up first is the original 1980 classic Friday the 13th, this one right here. I know that they come as 2 movies on one disc, which sucks, and they give away the frickin' killer on the cover, which is stupid because this is like the only movie where the killer is not Jason, so it's stupid that they would give that away on the cover, but I digress. The original 1980 film is a horror and slasher classic. It came out 2 years after the original Halloween, which is considered the first slasher film. And this was just as equally influential, and obviously it spawned many pop culture things like the Jason hockey mask and stuff like that, and it was just a huge success at the box office and was pretty groundbreaking from its score and special effects. And the story is about these group of camp counselors that go to this camp called Camp Crystal Lake, which is haunted because 25 years before 2 camp counselors were killed by a person that they do not know, and no one ever finds out who the person was. And then they try to open the camp like 10 years later, and then they find out the water was poisoned and there was a bunch of fires. So 10 years after that, this person, I think his name is Christie, or his last name's Christie, he gets enough money to reopen the camp again, and it's actually going to be successful. It's going to work this time, but these camp counselors get killed off one by one, and eventually they find out who it is and why they are doing this. I think if you're a horror fan, you must have seen the Friday the 13th, the original, because if you haven't, that's like sacrilege. I mean, that's like nuts. But the first Friday the 13th, I first saw it when I was like 9 or something, and it scared me pretty good. I mean, the full film, when I was watching it a couple years ago, had really good tension. It was definitely the scariest, and I think it still holds up as being the scariest of the Friday the 13th movies. It's the least goofy because, you know, it is the original in the series, and they get goofier as they go on. But I don't think it's obviously as scary now because I'm a teenager, but I think it still holds up in some parts, and I thought the gore held up really well. Like, a lot of the kills are pretty good, and they're pretty satisfying. But I do like the atmosphere of this movie the best. It's definitely set up everything really well. And that's really set up well by 2 people. One, the director, Sean S. Cunningham, who I believe this is the only one he's directed. Maybe he directed part 2, but I don't think so. He does this thing where, like, one of the camp counselors will be watching, and you'll be seeing it from the point of view of the killer, kind of like they did in Jaws, which actually the guy, Harry Manfredini, the guy that did the score, said he modeled that after. That's a pretty cool point of view shot. I don't know why, but it's really scary for some reason, and it sets up a lot of tension. Also, he will have you'll be in the point of view of the killer, and he will be walking into a cabin, and that's really scary too. I think he's one of the first to use the point of view shot in the horror movie, and it works very well because that is pretty scary and really tense in some scenes, and it works very well, and he creates a very good atmosphere in the isolated camp. Also, Harry Manfredini does one of the best horror scores ever with all of the films. I think he's done all 8 films. But the score here is fantastic. It's very, very high energy, a lot of stuff going on, and it's got the famous which is like from the killer in the movie. If you don't know the killer in the movie, it's actually Jason's mom. And Jason, when he was at camp 30 years ago when it first opened, he actually drowned, and the mother, played by Betsy Palmer here, went crazy and killed all the camp counselors because they said it was her fault. So she's doing the same thing here. She's killing all the camp counselors and to avenge Jason, because she's starting to hear voices in her head with Jason saying "Kill her, mommy, kill her." That's where that Maha came from. I can't do it well at all. I know I sound stupid. The original Friday the 13th, I do think it doesn't hold up as well as when I first watched it. Obviously, there's going to be some really bad acting in it. It's a horror movie, and I was expecting that. But just some of the things don't hold up as well. I think like it's not as scary, maybe because I'm older, but some things are definitely very cliched, but I can give the movie credit because it started these cliches basically, which is kind of a cool thing, but a bad thing as well. Of course, with bad acting, you get bad writing. Like there's a lot of times where like the main character, the one character that lives, is trying to kill Betsy Palmer, and there's so many times where she could have done it, but she doesn't do it. There's also stupid things like, why didn't you do this, why didn't you do that, but that's also to be expected. And also there's a point in the middle of the movie where they have a couple of kills, but they wait like 20 minutes to kill someone, or they kill someone from like 20 minutes before and you see the reveal. So it's sometimes in the middle, it's kind of boring, but I will say this is like Kevin Bacon's first film. He's one of the camp counselors, and he by far gets the best kill in the movie. It is awesome. Speaking of the kills that were revealed, like in the end, the main character that lives, Alice, is running away from Betsy Palmer's character, and she discovers all of the people that were killed, and the way that she discovers them is in pretty clever and sometimes scary ways, and I really like that. And I like the whole backstory with Jason's mother, and I think it sets up well for the sequels. I mean, and Betsy Palmer's pretty genuinely scary in these movies as well, and I think she has a pretty good screen presence. So if I had to rate the first Friday the 13th, I know it's a classic, but it doesn't hold up as well as I thought, but still has a pretty good atmosphere, and I still think it's a fun movie to watch, especially if you're alone at night with some friends or something. It's definitely a fun watch. So I'm going to give the original Friday the 13th, the classic Friday the 13th, a 3.5-star rating. I'm going to give it a very generous 3.5-star rating, but it is a classic, and it is one of the pioneers of horror, so I gotta give it a pretty positive rating. But I do like the film a lot, but it's definitely not my favorite in the series, but it did start a whole genre pretty much, this and Halloween, so that's pretty goddamn impressive. So stay tuned for my other reviews of the Friday the 13th films, and I hope you like this retro review Halloween special, and comment, subscribe, and tell me what you thought. So thanks for watching, and yeah.